All right, well, good morning, everybody. How's the sound in the back? Here's what I know about classrooms, by the way. Rabble-rousers in the back and the teacher's pets in the front. Nobody in the front row, and that part of the room was full when I got here. So, first of all, good morning. My name's Chris. Really happy to be here. This is the first of two AI sessions that we're going to be doing. There's another one after the break. They're really continuations of it. So if you like what you were seeing here today, please show up for the one in the afternoon. This is going to focus on just how you can use AI for just work. And then in the afternoon, we're going to talk specifically about how you can use AI as educators in the classroom. So a lot of the same themes are going to actually transfer to both of these things. But really, before we get started, first I want to say I'm really honored to be here. This is the second time I've gotten to participate in an SEC event. I actually spoke at the leadership conference about AI earlier this summer, and I got to meet a lot of the leaders of your organization, some of which I recognize some of the faces here today. The theme of that conference was planting the seeds of success, which I thought was actually perfect because it really speaks to the heart of what you guys do every single day. You nurture the potential and you empower students. But I also know that when you're doing vital work, that there's these other things that we don't really like to do if we don't have to. Let's just call those the weeds, so to speak, right? It's a thing that we have to deal with to get to the growth part of it. So really, the kind of things that I'm referring to there, just to be serious, is like the endless emails. I'm sure this is all going to give you PTSD as I read these things off. Meeting notes that need summarizing, the reports that you have to write, that blinking cursor that's sitting on a blank page when you want to start a new project. We all are familiar with that, right? So it's really administrative drag that pulls you away from the work that really matters. And that work is connecting with students and with each other. And that is starting to change, and that's really what we're talking about here today. One of the surprising drivers of change in that specific area is today's topic, artificial intelligence. Now, I'm not going to pretend there's not a lot of noise about, and maybe, frankly, some fear out there about AI with things like replacing jobs and things like that we hear. But I want to be really crystal clear today about my philosophy. You're going to hear that in this morning's session and this afternoon, which not only am I speculating, but I know is the same philosophy that the leadership at SEC also believes in as well. And that is about, and really, because every organization is being faced, the leaderships are being faced with a fundamental choice right now. And the choice is between building tools for automation or building tools for augmentation. These are two different directions you can go with AI. Now, to kind of give you guys a little bit of the definition here, automation is the narrative of replacement. This is the thing where you're building systems to take humans' jobs, and it's all about building things that a machine can do, and that's the story that you're hearing about in the headlines. And it creates deep anxiety about this obsolescence, and it should. It's scary. I'm scared of that. But augmentation, that's the story of empowerment. It's the philosophy that I like to call, a little tongue-in-cheek, and we'll have some fun with this today, the Iron Man suit philosophy. Why do I talk about the Iron Man suit philosophy? Well, primarily, to violate Disney copyright orders, just officially saying that for any recording here, but it also represents a fundamental shift in how technology is created. It's about making instead of creating just tools, but creating teammates. And this is how I use AI in my work as well, too, and I'm going to share some of this philosophy with you. So I'm here to report the SEC philosophy from the leadership down is that AI is not intended to replace anyone. It's not going to replace nurses or medical assistants or instructors or anything. Instead, the approach is to educate you and give you the tools to empower you, to make your current jobs easier. And also, it's actually going to be about getting ready for the future of work. As a matter of fact, while I was preparing this presentation, just a couple of weeks ago, this paper came out from Google, one of the organizations that's creating a lot of the AI tools that you probably are familiar with or at least hearing about. Just so you know, at the end of the session, I'm going to give you guys a website. You can download all of the slides that I've got, including this report, a bunch of really cool stuff that I'm going to tell you about at the end. So you can just sit back and relax and don't even worry about notes. All the stuff's going to be in here. But this particular document, which is the report that's also in there, said some really interesting things. And these are the type of things that I hear all the time in the AI industry. So what it's really about, this recent report was talking about the future of learning. And they made it very clear. And it's important what Google is saying, too, right? They are the ones making the models. They are saying that AI, and I'm quoting this paper here, AI is not positioned to replace educators or administrators. Instead, it's meant to take on the repetitive, time-consuming tasks that pull attention away from teaching and mentoring. in fields like nursing, where things like human judgment and empathy and professional experience are central and critical to tasks, AI will just serve as an assistant, giving faculty and facilitators more time for supervision, coaching, and clinical reasoning, and really the work that only humans can do. So AI is going to strengthen rather than diminish these roles by handling the routine tasks that take up so much of this time, allowing educators and administrators to focus on the high-value human work that really defines quality nursing education. So the best way to think about AI is a tool for empowerment. And this is where I get my Iron Man suit concept from. Here comes the trademark violations. Think about it. This suit, I'm sure you guys are familiar. It's described as one of the most powerful technologies imaginable, but it has no value without a person inside of it, right? It doesn't replace Tony Stark. It actually amplifies his abilities. It takes his human genius and it gives it superpowers. And that's exactly what AI is. It's a super suit that you all control. So in the final section of the workshop, after I'm done with this preamble here, I'm going to actually show you some techniques where you can simply interact with AI chatbots. You don't need to know anything about AI other than where to go find a chatbot and try these things out yourself. And I'm going to show you some techniques that work really well for me, and I'll introduce you to some resources that I think you'll find valuable. We're going to actually look in the day in the life of someone in pretty much all the departments that throughout SEC, like admissions, financial aid, career services. I tried to make these examples very specific to what you guys might actually encounter. And they're not futuristic ideas. These are things you can actually do today. Like later today, you can go try some of these things out. So each of the examples I'm going to use, I'm going to be using ChatGPT, but you could use anything. Whatever you guys have access to, whether it be Claude or Gemini, which is the one that Google makes, these will all work in the same one. There's nothing really proprietary about this. I just happen to find that using ChatGPT is easier for me. But before I get into the examples, what I'm really going to be talking to you about, and this is as technical as it gets, I promise you. We're just going to be using English words. Like that's all the technology that we have to use here. But the way that we describe these things is these are called prompts. So I want to take just a couple quick minutes to just talk to you guys about prompts so that you can understand really what this skill is. And as we approach it, you'll hopefully be able to connect some of the dots. And some of this might actually surprise you, because I think the understanding about these chatbots is that they're question answer machines. They're like databases with a bunch of knowledge, and we ask it questions and it tells us stuff back. But actually, the models behind the models behind the chatbots, like for example, ChatGPT has a model called GPT-5. Promise, it's no more acronyms. That's it for the day. It's really interesting how these things are created. Here's some cocktail party conversation for you guys this weekend. In order to get the most out of these chatbots like ChatGPT, you need to understand the concept of prompting, and more importantly, the concept of completion. So imagine that a language model is a highly advanced text predictor. That's actually what they are. So it's like a sophisticated type-ahead feature. All of you have seen this inside your mail programs, or even when you type something into Google. This is actually all it's doing, but it's doing it at this incredible level that we've never seen before. These models are actually trained on an enormous amount of human-written text, like books, articles, websites, like all books, all articles, all websites, by the way. And through this training process, they actually learn patterns and grammar and the style of human language. And honestly, the fact that they can even answer questions is just a happy byproduct of this training process. What they're truly meant to do is complete sentences or prompts. So when you give a language model a prompt, like a question or the start of any sentence, it uses its knowledge of patterns to actually predict and generate the most probable completion or response. It's not just guessing randomly, but it's making an informed completion predictions based on the vast amount of text that it was trained on. So the example I like to give is, sorry if you can't see this in the back, but this is just me chatting with an AI bot, and I simply type in the words, I think, therefore, and then I hit enter. And then it comes back with, I am, and even says Descartes. Now, you're going to get the same answer if you try this with very high probability, because the models are trained on completing this sentence. The highest probability completion of the sentence, I think, therefore, is I am. So really, that's what it's doing at these incredible levels. So now the actual completion you might see might actually differ sometimes, because they're not a database. They're not recalling a specific answer. Whatever you were saying in the conversation before, it will impact what it's going to see. So, and anything that you say to follow up with this will also impact it. But the idea is these are very much like they're literally called a probabilistic completion algorithm. Oh, I did get a little technical there. Okay, let's get a little bit wacky with this stuff instead. What I actually like to think about here is I like to use an example from a book that was also a bad movie that's called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Anybody familiar with this? It's kind of a nerd book. Oh, nerds. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm a fellow one. I ingested both the book and the movie. There's this great scene in here which I think perfectly discusses what these AI models actually are and why it's so important that we're good at prompting. So here's just a little snippet from the movie. And what we're actually seeing here is that in this movie, there's a pivotal scene where the all-knowing computer called Deep Thought, and this was from a long time ago, by the way. This basically predicted AI. Deep Thought was asked the question, I want to know the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. So let's take a look at how Deep Thought answered that question.
Many millions of years ago, a race of hyper-intelligent, pan-dimensional beings got so fed up with the constant bickering about the meaning of life that they commissioned two of their brightest and best to design and build a stupendous supercomputer to calculate the answer to life, the universe, and everything.
Oh, Deep Thought. We want you to tell us the answer.
The answer to what?
The answer to life, the universe, everything. We'd really like an answer. Something simple.
I have to think about that. Return to this place in exactly 7.5 million years.
Okay, so that's the good news. You don't have to do that with ChatGPT. You can just ask
There's
it.
more. There's more.
They go back.
What, 7.5 million years later?
That's right. They do.
Get ready. This is heavy. It's very, very deep.
Deep Thought. Do you have
An answer for you? Yes, but you're not going to like it.
Doesn't matter, we must know it.
All right. The answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything is 42.
42?
Yes, I thought it over quite thoroughly. It is, it's 42. It would have been simpler, of course, to have known what the actual question was.
It would have been simpler to actually know what the actual question was. So the whole premise of that scene, and frankly, the whole premise of this book, which is really kind of a comedic look at philosophy in general, was asking the right question. And Deep Thought, the smartest thing that's ever been known to mankind, will give the wrong answer if you don't ask the right question, right? So that's exactly how you approach AI. AI is the smartest thing as far as intelligence in one place that we've ever encountered in humankind. We have to be good at asking the right questions. So you hear a lot about things like how they're inaccurate or they hallucinate. And I can promise you, the techniques that I'm going to share with you here today will reduce hallucination and the lack of relevance in your answers considerably. And you're going to learn to become really good at asking questions. So this whole concept is called prompt engineering. And now, despite what you may have seen, if you've watched YouTube videos or you've clicked on headlines and read about how to really be good with AI and make $1 million working from home or whatever the deal is, this prompt engineering is not about techniques to trick the AI into giving better answers. It's all about taking on the responsibility of formulating the right questions so that the system's reasoning is directed towards your intent. And a lot of what we're going to talk about today is actually creating the context to be able to get those relevant answers back. So I'm going to show you some of these principles. We'll go through a couple of these at a high level, but here's the good news. At the end of this presentation, I'm going to give you a download link where you can download all of these slides, all these prompts. Don't worry about consuming all this stuff right now. Sit back and relax and let it sink in. But I'm going to go through some of these principles and let them kind of wash over you, and perhaps you'll kind of derive something from this that'll give you something to work on later when you have the materials in front of you. So I'm going to go through these kind of quickly as a result, but I do want them to sink in, and then I'll have some time at the end for any questions that you guys might have on any of these things. So the first thing is when we're prompting, remember we're asking questions of ChatGPT, we call that prompting. When we're prompting, believe it or not, be concise. Now, we just saw in the little clip there that they were pretty concise in their question, but the idea is don't give it too much. Think about signal versus noise. You want your questions to be all signal, no noise. So for example, this is an example of a non-concise prompt. Again, you'll see this in the materials later. Don't worry too much about the content here. But here's what's wrong with a non-concise prompt. It's too wordy. It includes multiple overlapping goals. You're confusing the AI when you're asking this. In this case, it talks about engagement strategies and tool selections and so on. And while it provides useful context about the college and the faculty and the audience, it doesn't give the language model specific, actionable instruction. So when you're more often to get that specific actionable instruction if you reduce the depth of what you're asking at any given time. So let me show you an example of a concise prompt. For those that can't read in the back, I promise you'll have access to these things here in just a few minutes. But basically this is the exact same instruction that will actually get a better answer. So if you can't even read it in the back, just seeing that a big block of text is bad and the fewer bit of text is good, then you're grokking this important part of it. But a couple of things to point out here. This prompt is intended to be clear, concise, and structured. It specifies the type of content. We're asking for an outline specifically. The purpose, which is faculty training or on student engagement. The context, healthcare education. Context is really important. You're going to hear me talk about that a lot today. And some of the expected components like activities that they're looking for, discussion questions, and so on. So this increases the likelihood of it receiving a well-structured outline that actually meets the needs. So the takeaway, keep it concise. The next principle, define your audience. Believe it or not, this is a really critical piece of AI implementations. A lot of guidance out there that you may have heard over the last few years is start off all of your prompts when you talk to with ChatGPT by saying, you are a helpful assistant. I'm here to report that is a nothing burger. It knows what it is. It wants to know about you and what you're trying to do, right? So forget that you are a helpful assistant. Also forget saying thank you and please at the end because someday the robots are going to take over. That also is not a meaningful way to get good engagement out of these models. But instead of saying who the model is, tell it about who your intended audience is. This way it actually narrows the focus of what its answer is going to be. This actually has profoundly relevant impact on relevance. As a matter of fact, in a lot of the corporate systems that we create for our clients, we spend a ton of time on who the audience is and who the users are that are actually interacting with the language model. So you should do the same thing yourself. So for example, here, I'm clearly defining that I'm specifying the audience, nursing instructors, their interest, integrating AI ethically into teaching, and then the model gains clear context on the type of language, tone, and examples that it should use. I mean, really think about it knows everything. It could give you any answer you want. You're narrowing down the answers that you actually want to hear. Okay, so far we have be concise, define who your audience is, and now it's time, just as important as it is to specifying your target audience when you create these prompts, also give some context so it understands, so it has clear understanding of your perspective, objectives, and the purpose behind the task at hand. So for instance, I have two prompts on screen here. I'll read the first one to you. It says, generate a presentation about how AI can be used in college classrooms. The second one is a much longer version of that. The second version provides rich context. I'll point out some of the things that are in there. It identifies the role. It specifically says, as a faculty development coordinator, right? You're telling it who you are and what your goals are there. It specifies the goal to create a presentation demonstrating practical, responsible use of AI in teaching. That's very helpful to the model as well. And then it also adds your intended audience. Again, instructors who may be cautious or unfamiliar with AI. This is also critically important to getting really good responses out of this. And then you mention your focus is responsible and ethical use, which will further tune the answers to be more relevant to those use cases. And also, I would actually add as a pro tip, if you have roles within your organization like Dean of Academics or Financial Aid Officer or Advisor, you can actually use those as well because it is such a vast knowledge and contextual understanding of what those roles are within universities. It can actually bring that from some of its knowledge. Okay, so be concise. Tell it who your audience is. Tell it who you are and what your goals are. And now this one might be a little bit. This might sound like a little bit of anthropomorphizing. Oh, I did it. But give it time to think. I don't want to freak you out. They're not like thinking and, like they're living on their own or sentient or anything like that. But giving it time to think really means giving it steps to perform. So this is one of the biggest, most impactful prompting techniques that we see, and we build this into our back-end prompts within our corporate infrastructure as well. So you'll notice at the bottom, even if you can't read the text, again, you'll get these afterwards when you download it, but it just says perform the following actions, and it gives a bunch of steps. So I'm going to go through what those steps are, just so you can kind of give an idea. The idea is, let me actually fast forward over to my tips for giving you, to creating these steps. So really, despite what the steps are in that particular prompt, here's what you kind of want to look for. So first of all, you want to break down the tasks that you want it to perform for you logically. There's this whole concept of order of operations or dependencies. So in order for it to accomplish the final task, think about what the first thing it needs to do is. Go do some research on such and such topic, whatever it is. In this case, I'm decomposing the main objective into smaller actionable steps, addressing the dependencies like I mentioned. So we'll start off with breaking them down logically. And then also, you can even use sequential numbered lists for organization. Believe it or not, it responds quite well to actually using numbered lists. It literally knows. I start with number 1 and I go to number 2 and so on. Incorporate checks for understanding or reflection. A lot of these, especially the things you may have heard of called reasoning models, actually do take multiple steps as they're performing these answers for you. So what you can actually say is include things that prompt the model to reflect or even summarize on information from previous steps. Like you can tell it after you go gather a bunch of information about whatever the topic is, make sure that this is only relevant to North America or something like that. And of course, there's dependency there that the one I just mentioned needs to follow the research, of course. Again, use clear and concise language, or incorporate the checks like I mentioned. Use clear and concise language, and then tailor the steps for your audience and the application. At the very end, if you always end with, here's who this is for, this is what the objective is, or this is the format that I want, that always comes at the end. So do your research, omit all the stuff about this, then go do this with the information you gathered and present it to me in this style. If that cadence makes sense, then that can be applied very easily to the type of work that you're doing when you're prompting. Now, the idea of context is critically important. When I talk about context, I'm talking about giving it information inside the prompt. There's 2 different ways that you can actually do to add context. The first way is to provide examples. So in an example I'm going to show you guys here in a second, I'm going to show you how you can use AI to create an Instagram post, for example. And in that example, I'm actually taking my favorite Instagram post that I've ever created, the one that got the most engagement, and I'm providing that in the prompt to the chatbot. Now, it's not going to sit there and go, oh, you want me to just do that again? It's smart enough to know, oh, I get it. This is the tone, the style, the length. You use emojis. Great, I'll use emojis. You had a very positive tone. I'll be very positive. So it's not going to read it exactly and just regurgitate that out. And you can sometimes provide a bunch of different examples to really guide it to get you what you really want. So especially if you're not getting consistency from outputs when you're working with chats, the more examples you give, you're essentially just like leading it down a path, just like you would a learner. And then finally you go, okay, now you try. And then by the time they've gotten all those examples, they're going to be right on with what you're looking for. So examples could either be, this is the exact format and tone I'm looking for, or examples could be context of information that you actually wanted to process for you. Or it could be other outputs that you really liked before. So I'm going to get into the specifics of some of these in our in the demos here. So with all the information that we just learned, let me jump into our demos. Okay. So I'm going to actually do a little bit of a tour here through, and admittedly, what I perceive to be the different groups within SEC. And what I'm hoping to do is be able to land on something that's relevant to all of you. At the very least, you'll see that I've also used that same context in the takeaways that you'll be able to download. I've got a bunch of examples just like this that you can perform on your own when you get in front of your own desk and have some internet access. So all of them are supposed to be relevant to the type of work that you guys are actually doing. So forgive me if it's a little off left of center, but that was what the goal was here at the very least. So the first scenario that I'm going to address, and I'll explain what the important things are that are on screen here. The scenario we're going to start with admissions. Anybody here from admissions? Fantastic. Oh, see all the teachers' pets up front, actually. It's interesting. So for the rest of you, imagine, if you will, that you're an admissions advisor. You just gave a campus tour to a promising but very shy and nervous potential student named Maria. And you want to send her a follow-up email that feels personal and addresses her specific concerns. So one of the things that you see over on the left-hand side is, in addition to prompts, this is the only one I'm going to do in these demos where I'm not giving it an input. Okay? What I mean by an input, well, you'll see what the inputs are here, but we don't have an input here because all we're doing is saying, in our specific prompt, I'll read this off to you. I've broken it into these different categories. The role that the model is playing, I'm saying you are an encouraging and friendly admissions advisor for a healthcare college. That's a little bit of that context that I was talking about before. Who's the audience? The audience is an email for a prospective student named Maria, who's shy and nervous. And then the task is exactly what I indicated before, draft a warm and encouraging email. And then at the end, I say, include these points. So I'm giving it some guidance there. Yeah, question?
No, I see in the prompt you actually have listed role, audience, task, and include these points. You can just go ahead and do that kind of formatting.
Yeah, the question for the rest of you that didn't hear that is that he was pointing out quite well the role. I specifically say role, audience, task, and so on. And can we do that inside the prompt? Absolutely. This is literally an ideal format for a prompt. You can be very deliberate about, yep, this is the part where I talk about the audience, this is the part where I talk about the role and the task and so on. It makes it so much easier. It takes all the hard, heavy lifting away from the chatbot. So let's consider that another one of the principles. And you'll see almost all of them organized this way and in the takeaways as well. So we're doing the principles of defining the audience, defining our goals and our role, keeping it concise, and we're providing it structure with some of the points that we want it to follow. So let's actually take a look at this in action, and hopefully you guys can see this even in the back, but I'm entering in the prompt, I'm hitting OK, or I'm hitting the enter button, and it's coming back with an email to Maria. And what I'm doing after I get this back is I'm hitting the little copy button. They've always got a little copy button on the bottom, and this is where I tell you, I just posted something on LinkedIn last night because I saw that Deloitte is being sued now for paying millions of dollars or getting paid millions of dollars to create a bunch of stuff that they appear to have used ChatGPT to do, and that's because they just copied whatever came out of ChatGPT and shipped it. I strongly say do not do that. And my comment when I posted that was, you should always look at everything that comes out of AI as your first draft. This is how you can actually keep yourself in this as well, too. This already saved you so much time that hitting the copy button and putting it into your email program and then doing a little bit of changing of it is still saving you tons of time. So always do the copy, but then, massage a little bit and read it over, making sure it sounds like you and that type of thing. That one's pretty simple. So now the next one is going to have some input. So now we're going to continue our journey throughout the campus. We're going to go to financial aid. Any financial aid folks here? All right, the rabble-rousers in the back. So for the rest of you, imagine that you're also in financial aid. The government has just released a dense 3-page document on the new FAFSA regulations, and your job is to have to explain it to students and parents without further confusing them. This is actually one of my favorite uses of AI. So in this case, you notice in the blue, don't worry about the words. That's, let's say, the 3-page document that we got from the government. So that's going to be our input. So you'll notice now in my prompt, I do the role, audience, task, the same thing I did before. But then I said, perform these following steps. Read the document or the snippet of the document that I'm providing. Because in this case, I'm giving it text right in the chatbot window there. But I could upload a document. You'll see I'm going to do that in a future one coming up here. And then I say for each of them, rephrase it in simple plain English, format the final outputs as 5 bullet points in plain English that will make sense to my audience. So let's take a look at how that works. Oh, no, this is, sorry, I went too far, my bad. Here we go. Okay, financial aid, and there's the snippet. I only put like 3 paragraphs in there, but again, you could upload an entire document. You could upload like a 150-page document or something in here if you want to. And out there, and I promise you, for those in the back, it's bullet points with all of the important points that are in there in a very specific language. This is a task that happens quite a bit. As a matter of fact, I don't mind telling you, in my role as a I do a lot of executive advising on AI, and one of the most common requests that I get from the C-suite, like Silicon Valley people, is they go, "Hey, can you teach me how to make this whole thing that I got from my tech team make sense to me? Like, have it explained to me as a 10th grader?" Like, literally, this is the most popular use of AI in a lot of these organizations, and that's basically what we just did here. Okay, now we're going to go a little bit further through our exercises. In this particular case, we have academics and faculty support. So let's say you're a faculty member. If any faculty members here? All right, awesome. I'm married to a teacher too, by the way. These are unfortunately conversations that we have at the dinner table, so just be happy that you can escape me as you leave here this afternoon. But I have much respect and great pride in having her in my family. But let's say you're a faculty member or a lab coordinator for the nursing simulation lab, and you need to order new supplies for the upcoming semester, and you've got a messy list of items. So I'm going to show you a feature of AI here that's in addition to the prompt. The prompt just says that's what you're trying to do, and then specifically on the bottom I say this is the format I want it in. I need this in a table that you could actually copy and just paste into Excel or whatever, an email, however you need to do it. You could at this point say, here's what the purchasing department, the actual format they need this in, and you could upload that and just say, give it to me in this exact format to save you that step too. So in this particular case, I'm going to show you something kind of neat. So let's say that you put in the prompt, but now I'm going to hit the little button on the bottom for the microphone, and I'm going to dictate. Okay, let's see. I need to order. Don't worry, you can't really hear it too well, but let's say I'm standing in the supply room and I'm just kind of saying, well, I need 15 of this, and I need 10 of that, and I need 2 of these, and 3 of those, and I'll take, blah, 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 blah. And then it records all that. You hit OK, and it will actually send that up with your prompt. So this is something that I do all the time. Most of my neighbors think I'm insane because I'm always talking to my AI as I'm walking my dog around the neighborhood. And this is a very helpful way to actually do it without having to do the typing. So a little pro tip, and you can see here, it gives you a nice formatted table that when you copy, it'll actually paste it as a table into a document or an email if you needed to. Okay. Moving on into career services. Anyone here from career services? All right, excellent. Okay, so the scenario here, you're in career services, and a nursing student named Jordan Avery has just finished their internship at City Clinic with the supervisor, Jane Doe. And you want to send Jane a professional email to get feedback on their performance. So you're going to, the prompt is literally everything I just said. Task, write a brief professional email. Here's all the names that are going to be meaningful. And the tone is appreciative and of their time and being so professional. And so this, again, same kind of thing. This is really a tone thing. I'll admit there's some days I'm a little low blood sugar where I'm about to hit send on a really angry email, and I'll just say, hey, AI, try to make me not sound like such a jerk. And it does a really good job of that, too. Also something my wife wishes I would do more often with AI, but I'm getting there. We're all learners, right? So here we are. You actually see I'm putting it into the email program, and I'm going to do a little bit of editing before I actually send that off. So that's referred to as like changing tone or just getting, here's the gist of what I'm trying to say, make this actually sound good. By the way, pro tip, if you don't want people to think you're using it, I literally do this all the time. If you don't want people to think that everything you're sending them is AI, which everything I send people is AI, I purposely go in and I spell a bunch of words wrong. Because people go, oh yeah, well this wasn't ChatGPT, he just spelled the wrong. So if you ever get an email from me, I do know how to spell. But anyhow, let's go into compliance. Anyone here from compliance? Oh, all right. I guess we're kind of, to some degree, we're all in compliance, aren't we? So let's say in this particular case, you're in compliance, you're reading an accreditation report, and you come across a paragraph that's almost impossible to understand. Is this a real thing that happens? Okay, right. So let's say, I just kind of made a short, made-up a paragraph of really dense jargon. So in this case, I'm just trying to say, we want to actually send this to a new employee who's not familiar with this terminology. So this is kind of similar to that executive explained it to me as a 10th grader thing, but I'm identifying specifically who the audience is for this information. So same kind of thing. You get the idea. We paste that in there. The other part is, too, what I wanted to point out here is that I could use this one prompt and then give it a list of like 50 different students that I'm going to send this to, and say, for every one of these students that I'm describing, give me another chunk. And so you can do one thing with one prompt and a bunch of different outputs to give, like, you could have different students at different altitudes or different learning stages in their education, and it could come out with the perfect versions of this. The example that I'll give, my wife is a special ed teacher, and she's always struggling with lesson planning, and her biggest challenge with lesson planning is that she has curriculum, but she has Lexile levels across the board inside her class. So instead of burning all those Sunday nights doing lesson plans for all of them, I've helped her become comfortable taking one lesson plan and outputting lesson plans for every single, tailored to every single student in her classroom. And this is through really deeply defining who the student is, of course, without having to identify them through PII. And it works out actually quite well. All right, so kind of rounding the corner here. How about marketing? Anybody in marketing? All right, well, let's pretend we're all in marketing, and and you know what? It's National Nurses Week. I mean, it's not National Nurses Week, but let's pretend it's National Nurses Week, and you need a quick, inspiring social media post to celebrate your students and faculty. And maybe you're just not feeling it right now. You're not in the I want to celebrate everybody thing, but I got to get this out because it's not going to be National Nurses Week for long. So I'm going to show you a cool little feature, at least of ChatGPT. A lot of them do it. I tell it what I want to do, and actually what I put in the middle there is an example of a post that I did before that got a lot of good engagement. So again, it's not going to just regurgitate out that same post. It's going to use that, it's like you're training a colleague. Hey, this was a good example of what we did before. So here it says, here's the 3 different options I can choose from. So I'm going to take it one step further. I'm going to say, let's use option number 2, but when I hit the little plus button, I'm going to choose one of the tools that ChatGPT offers for creating an image. So I'm going to tell it to go create the image for me and actually put that in there. And of course, we can't forget the hashtag National Nurses Week. So I'm just in there saying use option 2, but now actually create this as an image. So I admit that I sped this up a little bit because it does take a little while to do this. But what you'll get, at least, Gemini does this. Pretty much they all do. But it'll wait for a second, and then it'll give you a couple options. I like the option on right there. It's perfectly formatted for Instagram because I told it so. I'm going to copy this image, and I'm going to go post it right now. So we've looked at using voice as inputs. We've looked at the creating images. And this afternoon is a bit of a tease. I'm going to show you how you can use voice to interact, or how students can use voice to interact with some of your lessons. Yeah, Yankees fan.
Yeah, so I use ChatGPT quite a bit.
Excellent.
Classroom, I'm not faculty member, and I upgraded to the paid version for $20 a month. Is this a good investment or not?
Absolutely. The question was, there is a free version of ChatGPT, which is great, and then there's a $20 a month version, and is it a good investment? And in short, I'd say yes, because first off, it never cuts you off, so you'll never be in the middle of some important thing that you're doing, and then all of it says, hey, you got to wait till 10 p.m. or tomorrow morning to start this activity again. But also some of the tools that I shared with you there are only available in the free version, for example, so if you want to explore that a little bit further. But I've got news. Just this week, ChatGPT just released ChatGPT free for teachers. You guys can check this out. My wife just sent me her email that they announced at her school this morning. I don't know what the qualifications are there, but if you want to look into seeing what the qualifications are, you might be able to get the fully functional enterprise version for free, depending on what your education, what their qualification criteria is. But in short, $20 a month, yeah, absolutely. And by the way, don't forget to write that off on your taxes at the end of the year too. I am not a tax professional. Yeah.
Good morning, Chris. Question, we're using as an institution, we're using Microsoft Copilot.
Using Copilot, yep.
That's right, and that is pretty much for all of our team members. Would the Copilot have all the same tools?
Yes. So the question is, does Copilot have the same tools? Copilot actually goes even a step further. You can interact with Copilot in the same way that we're doing, but Copilot is integrated into Word and PowerPoint, and you can have it actually do things in those documents for you. You can be in Word and invoke Copilot and say, hey, can you proofread this document for me? Here's who my audience is, and I want to make sure I'm not speaking over their head or below their level or anything like that. So you can use these same prompting techniques inside the products that Copilot gives you access to as well. Great question. Okay. And here's my last example. is really about providing some context. And this is how I really use AI in my job every day. I'm providing documents to it. So I'll do a couple of examples of this later this afternoon too. For those of you that come back, I'll give you a little tease there. But let's say in this case we're in operations, and it's time to plan the quarterly campus safety drill. So we need a simple plan to make sure that we don't miss any steps for the, we want to create a checklist for planning the quarterly campus safety drill. We need to organize it into before the drill, during the drill, and after the drill. Now here's the thing. Look at what happens when, if I just, actually let me go back and I'll describe what's happening here. This is there's a nuance to this. So I could just go in and say, give me a campus safety plan. And it'll spit out a really good campus safety plan. And it might actually be exactly what you need. As a matter of fact, you can probably mitigate the risk of it not being what you need by uploading last year's campus safety plan, for example, right? But the reason it can give you one of these things without really having much context about your campus is that it's been trained on all of the information that's ever been on the internet ever. Publicly available data on the internet ever. So it can give you something, but it might not be relevant to your campus. So this is why I say to get the best out of AI is to always provide whatever context that you can. And here's one. On the free version, can you upload documents?
Yes.
Okay, you can. I haven't used the free version in a while.
Recently, it wasn't the case before, but now you can.
Perfect. There we go. Thank you. Because I wasn't sure if the free version allowed you to do what I'm describing, and this might have been one of those upsells. I am not a salesperson for OpenAI either. So what I'm doing in this case, I happen to find a campus safety plan for Cal Poly Pomona, just happened to find one on the internet for the sake of this example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that prompt in there, but I'm assuming this is our campus, right? I'm going to put the whole document in there. And if you look at the document, it's pretty extensive. It's got all sorts of information. I mean, it's a 4-pager, but it's got all the details that we need. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another feature, which I also believe is part of the paid one. It's called Deep Research. That's not the big crazy character from Hitchhiker's Guide that I introduced you to earlier. This is actually probably one of the most amazing features that any of these chatbots do. It takes a while to do it, but I do this all day, every day for my work and for my clients. So what it does is it says, oh, okay, I see the document. I see what you want me to do. I've got a few questions. So here it's actually honing in on exactly, making sure that it gets some of these things right. And then now it's going to go think for a while. And the crazy thing is, while it's thinking, you can actually see what it's thinking. I encourage all of you that try this feature to open up this activity thing and see it talking to itself. It's insane. It's a craziness, actually. So if you notice also, it's actually referring just to that document that I just provided. And after about 10 minutes or so, sometimes these take 20, 30 minutes, depending on how many resources you give it, it gives you a full document that you can download as a PDF or as a Word document. I downloaded this one as a PDF just because it's easier to show you. But it has a ChatGPT thing on it. But if you do the Word document, it doesn't, and you can edit it. And of course, that's what I recommend that you do. So that's called Deep Research. And if you provided a document or 20 documents, it'll use that only as the source. You can also hit Deep Research and just have it go research out the web for you. Actually, that's the first thing I would suggest doing. Pick your favorite topic, whether it's border collies or Christmas presents, what's hot for 2025, and then just hit Deep Research and watch what it comes back with. It'll absolutely blow your mind. All right, so to wrap it up, what I'm going to show you is that I've actually put together, see, down here in the bottom, if you can't see it, it's really easy to remember. Just go to the website, mypresentationfiles.com, mypresentationfiles.com. And when you do that, it'll automatically start downloading a little zip file that I promise you does not have any malware in it, and it's these documents. So the documents that are in here is a whole bunch of stuff that I think you'll really enjoy. It's a terminology guide that I put together for you. All the prompting principles that I gave you with the actual prompts themselves. So everything you couldn't see in the back, you're gonna have a PDF of that. I gave you then even a whole bunch more that you can try on your own. Exercises that you can try that are specific to nursing as well. And then a prompt training resource sheet in addition to that, and I'm going to go into this a little bit more in the afternoon session, but I also included that Google State of AI and Learning report because it is so compelling and so well written, and it's meant for those in the education industry. I included that as well as a 120-page slide of a bunch of prompts that you can use for education and some of the work adjacent to education. I'm going to go through some of that in the afternoon session. So for now, I'll be outside roaming the halls in case you guys have any more questions, but I'll look forward to seeing you this afternoon. Again, my name is Chris, and I appreciate your attention today. Yeah, I've got 5 minutes for questions. Yes.
What's the difference? So you mentioned Copilot, you mentioned ChatGPT. I hear like Instagram, Perplexity, all these other.
The question is, what's the difference with all these different products that we see? What I can tell you is ChatGPT, there's one called Claude, Google has Gemini. They're pretty much the same thing. Now, Perplexity is actually a browser-based thing that you can use as a browser. It still answers questions for you, but it has a couple extra features. I would focus at this altitude, I would focus on the ChatGPTs and the Claudes and the Geminis of the world. Easy, approachable, and they're free and cheap to use. Yeah?
Reliability of the peer-reviewed resources.
The question is, what's the reliability of the peer, the peer research, the research itself, frankly, in the deep research? Here's the good news. When you do the deep research, that second tab on the side shows you all the sources that it finds. When I do these things, I sometimes get 100+ different resources, and they're all listed specifically as an appendix on the bottom that you can look at every one of them. And every time they're cited within the document, you have a citation right next to it, and you can go investigate it. If you don't like the citation, you can get rid of it, or you can go dig in on it and maybe ask it to go, emphasize that a little bit more on its next run. It's crazy. Yeah, it'll really blow your mind. Yeah.
Chris, do you mind covering, when people are typing in prompts or uploading documents to AI, it doesn't just sit there, as we all know. If you're uploading company proprietary information...
I know exactly where you're going here. Just this morning, so the question is about, I'm putting information into the chatbot and I'm putting documents into the chatbot. So first of all, see whatever your campus rules are to start with. Whatever the rules are there, you must not violate them. But what I can tell you from a purely technical standpoint, if you go find me on LinkedIn, you'll see the last post that I put on there was debunking one of the greatest myths is that somehow these models can consume your data. I'm not saying that you shouldn't listen to your compliance folks. What I'm saying is this is how the technology works. Luckily, these aren't databases. As a matter of fact, right now, if you go up to Silicon Valley and you shake the guys who run all these businesses right now and say, what problem are you trying to solve right now? They all say the same thing, self-learning models and real-time training. What that means in English is when people give us information, it learns from it. It cannot do that right now. So you can, very important. Whenever you hear GPT-5 just came out, that means that they published a model, it's done learning, and it's available for you to be able to send requests to. So in no way, shape, or form can it regurgitate. There's a whole concept of these don't regurgitate data. To prove it to you, all of my health data, not all my financial data, some of it, all my health data, and unbeknownst to my wife, all hers as well, is all in a ChatGPT conversation somewhere. And I feel very confident that it's not going to be able to be retrieved from someone else because the way that the training works, well, first of all, if you use the API or if you use some of these tools at the business level, they won't train on your data. But what does train on your data even mean? That means it's going to use your interactions to say, hey, this person asked a question this way, and this is how it was answered. Is this a good exchange of information? It's not taking your information. So if you go into ChatGPT right now and say, what's Cris Ippolite's latest blood results look like? I promise you, with absolute certainty, you will not get any answers back. It's just not, the technology just doesn't work that way. Of course, and I think that's a really important thing for us to know so that you can do this with confidence. But don't go all YOLO on this either. Like, if you don't have to put information in there, don't. Like, you can get a lot of this information back without actually having to share PII, for example. Yeah. AI comes across a bit vague, and I absolutely believe AI comes across a bit vague if it's not given the direction to be very specific. So a lot of the techniques that I've shared here to you are very much about it having it not be vague. If you just kind of don't do a lot of these things and just kind of ask it questions, yeah, it's purposely vague and sometimes maybe even a little sycophanty. But if you use these things, you'll direct it out of some of those methods into something that's useful for you. All right, we did it.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. We'll see some of you this afternoon. Cheers.